And we are live, it appears. So, hello, everyone. I am Karin Helmstaedt for Your Public Value in Berlin, and this interview is part of a series that we're doing on how corporations are shaping the post-COVID landscape. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to have Corley KENNA on the line. She's the Director of Global Communications and Public Relations at Patagonia, a company that has not only pioneered the notion of using business as a force for good, but they're really best in class when it comes to making a public value approach a profitable one. So Patagonia has been a certified B Corporation since 2011, but it's had sustainability and purpose in its DNA since its founding back in 1973. And over the years, the scope of that approach has continually broadened as the company has addressed many issues in its supply chains and is continually rethinking every aspect of its operations to reduce environmental impact and generally make its business serve people and the planet better. So a warm welcome to you, Corley, and thanks for joining me from California this morning, your
Thanks so
time.
much. Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Well, I'd like to start just by asking you, what does the term public value actually mean to you? And how would you say that it's incorporated into the company strategy at Patagonia?
Business as usual is not good enough anymore. Companies must do more than make a product or provide a service, and therefore they have to think about their public value. What do they bring to their communities? Your community, which I would include within that, your employees and your customers, but also the people around your company. They have an expectation, really they're holding you responsible to think beyond profit. And at Patagonia, as you mentioned, we are a B Corp, and B stands for benefit and really refers to benefiting workers, the community, and the planet. So we're legally bound to keep these interests in mind in all of our company decisions. And so these values really end up embedded from the very beginning with our business strategy and our culture.
So legally bound, but you even took that one step further not so long ago, because your mission statement is now literally, we are in business to save our home planet. So Patagonia, in that context, has set an ambitious goal to be CO2 neutral by 2025. Can you give us a quick overview of what's still on the agenda for the company to achieve that?
Sure. So we remain fully committed to our carbon goals, and we are still working through how the COVID pandemic has had an impact on those goals. And it hasn't changed the goal itself, but it likely has altered some of the timelines, and we're still working through exactly what that means. And stay tuned. We'll be publishing more about this on our website in the coming months. But, I think as for our mission statement, one of the things that this crisis, actually all of the crises that we're living through right now, have really brought to the fore is how important it is for us to double down on our mission statement. Now's not the time for us to be walking away. Our mission statement, we're in business to save our home planet, is more important than ever before. And I think we realize with what's going on in the world around us, just how fragile the world is, and living up to our mission statement in a sharper way is more important than ever before.
Okay, and you mentioned the current ongoing crisis in the US, obviously the number one being the health crisis, COVID-19, but there's also the Black Lives Matter movement going on for a number of weeks now, and continuing to affect many areas of society. How do you exactly see the role of corporations like yours in building a more equal society in terms of gender, inclusion, human rights, etc.?
I think as a global community, we can't address the COVID crisis or the social justice crisis without the private sector. And I think it's really important that every company recognize that. Companies can be an important part of the solution. Recognizing their hiring practices, recognizing when they open the doors in their community, it might not be time. All these things are going to be things we have to look at if we want to make progress, if we want to move forward on these really fundamental issues. And until that happens, I'm not sure we will make progress. So we need every company to wake up to the fact that they must be a part of the solution.
And you are always reaching out to even to your competitors, obviously, to get on board with this kind of an activist role. Patagonia is a privately owned firm, though, so you don't actually need to be answering to shareholders, which is interesting. I'd like to know how much easier or perhaps harder is it to keep the balance between profitability and doing the right thing?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's really a false choice to say you can either make money or do good. Patagonia has proved that over and over again. We do the right thing and it benefits our business. Of course, we don't do the right thing to benefit the business necessarily, but it does often work out that way. And not only is it a false choice, but by doing good, not only can you be profitable, but by giving something beyond money for your employees to focus on, I think you'll find you can solve really major problems. And I think of the work of our materials team. They're focused on building the best product and in doing so, and doing that in the most responsible way. And they end up solving for all kinds of really important things. I think about ocean plastic pollution, and now we're using that in the hat brims that we sell. I mean, so it's really incredible that when you refocus beyond profit, what you can achieve.
So from your perspective and quite vast experience, obviously, with a background in politics, what needs to happen for public value and this idea of purpose over profit to become a generalized approach? Because, I mean, we keep talking about getting more companies on board, but what does it take for this to become a generalized approach in the US, but also globally?
Sure. For starters, CEOs, shareholders should shift their perspective and focus on the long term. Some people say that at Patagonia, one of our most important offerings is our on-site childcare program. So I'd encourage CEOs to think about what do they have in place at their company that will help ensure that they'll be around for another 100 years. Next, I would suggest that companies look at the B Corp movement. Take a look at the assessment report and see how your company aligns. You might be surprised at how many things you're already doing. And not to suggest it's easy, but you might be on a path and you just don't realize it yet. And finally, think about your values. What drives your company? A profit-only approach is not sustainable. And if there's one takeaway from this pandemic, it's a reminder of just how fragile our systems are, but also how resilient they can be when purpose and values drive our decision making.
Thank you very much. Well, obviously with purpose and values being a major draw at Patagonia, this is something, I mean, putting one of the biggest challenges, if I can just squeeze in a last question, one of the biggest challenges really for companies is to show that they are on board with this message of actually putting their employees first. What kind of things have you been seeing in the community that have perhaps uplifted you in these dark and dreary times?
Yeah, I've been impressed to see really big companies mandate mask wearing. And that might seem simple, but here in the States, masks have become political. Who would have thought? And I think it's been really great to see CEOs say that's absurd. Wearing a mask is not a political statement. It is for the safety and health of our community. So of course we're going to require people to wear masks. So it's things like that. And, you know, I think that is it's a larger and important movement that we're seeing, especially in this country, is CEOs in the private sector have the ability to take politics out of really big topics. I think about climate change and how many executives are willing to address climate change when our Congress refuses to address climate change, or at least the Senate does right now. And when you hear CEOs say carbon goals are really important, and we're not doing that because of politics, we're doing that because we want to protect our planet, that's really encouraging.
Well, thanks very much for taking the time to speak with me, Corley. I know you're very, very busy in these times of crisis, and hopefully you had a rejuvenating holiday. Corley KENNA of Patagonia, and we wish you, of course, all the best for the coming months of what will be a very decisive year indeed in the US. And be sure to stay safe and keep everybody on board as you have so far. Thanks very much for speaking with me.
Thank you.